My name is Joe Thomas. I serve as the director of the Vice Admiral James B. Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership. And I want to, first of all, thank all of you for recognizing that this is among the things on the Naval Academy's calendar on an annual basis that we absolutely love to celebrate. This is an opportunity to get together and in many ways celebrate that which defines the Naval Academy itself. Ethical leadership, the issue of ethical leadership, the development of ethical leadership and moral reasoning in our midshipmen. It's a time really for all of us to kind of commit ourselves to lead with honor, courage, and commitment as we kind of move forward. We've got several things on the docket this evening. The Ethics Essay Award dinner, a couple of other very significant things to recognize staff and faculty as well as we go on this evening. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the 63rd Superintendent of the United States Naval Academy, Vice Admiral Sean Buck.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome back to the House and to your home the 62nd Superintendent of the Naval Academy, Vice Admiral Ted Carter and Brad Lincoln. Good to have you back. You look 10 years, 15 years younger already. I need a little of that strategy right here. So we have the leadership in the room tonight that represents all three pillars of how we work to develop the young men and women who comprise the brigade here. We've got our athletic director, Chet Gladcheck, here with the physical mission. We've got Dean Andy Phillips here with the mental mission. And we also now are going to have a very special dinner to celebrate the third pillar of that development, which is the moral mission. And I would suggest that's that mission that's the bedrock of building upon that foundation to build leaders of character who have the confidence, the integrity, and the behavioral standards to go out in the fleet with that fine education, with the physical prowess that they gain here, and be great leaders out in the fleet from the moment that they hit the fleet. We celebrate the mental mission a lot. We celebrate academic success here. That's awesome. We celebrate a lot of physical success here. That's awesome also. And I'm excited that we also take the time to celebrate the moral success. And thanks to the Larson family, to the philanthropy of two classes, Class 81s. Is Class 81 in the house tonight? Yes. 83 minus 2. And I think the class of 58's in the house. Yeah! Well, thanks to both of those classes. 81 sponsors the dinner, and 58 sponsors the awards for the ethics essays. And also the Larson family, Sally Larson, and her daughter Kristen, representing the entire Larson family. Thank you for the sacrifice for decades and decades to our country during your husband's service. Thank you very much. And you also sponsor another neat award that we'll present tonight, and we appreciate that. I want you all to know what my affiliation is with Vice Admiral William P. Lawrence. He was my soup here for my first 2 years at the Naval Academy. And I'll tell you what a fine example for me to begin to be developed into a leader. His resilience, his character, his grit, his focus, his patience was an example that still inspires me to this day. He continues to shape my philosophy of what I think a midshipman, a Naval Academy graduate, should be out in the fleet. So I'm very, very grateful to Admiral Lawrence. I believe his bride is still with us. I don't think she's with us tonight. Mrs. Lawrence is not in the audience tonight, I don't believe. But she's still with us. God bless her. They were a phenomenal superintendent and first lady of the Naval Academy, and will forever shape how I lead and love everybody here at the Naval Academy. And to have a dinner and an ethics award for essays written by a midshipman after William P. Lawrence couldn't be more suitable. I'd like to, before I give up the mic back to Joe and we continue, I just want to give a couple shout outs and thanks to some folks, to Miss Sally Larson, who's here representing. thank you very much for all of that service and for continuing to support this award that we give. The Class 81, who we just heard from, Class of 58. And then I'd also like to give a shout out, where's our guest speaker, Mr. Brian Kamoie? Brian is the Assistant Administrator of FEMA for Mission Support. I just asked him, okay, what's that mean? I think that means you're the ops officer for FEMA. And all of us who are in uniform, who've been in fleet units, who happen to be the ops officers, we know this is the busiest man in FEMA. And think about where we are today. We're in the middle of September, hurricane season, the heart of hurricane season, and we've got the ops officer here. I think that's indicative, sir, of how you realize how important this is, and we're very grateful for your time to come back. We've also got amongst us, and I haven't met you all, I think we have a lot of the instructors from our NE 203 course in the house, and I have not had a chance to meet everybody, but my thanks to you all for how you continue to mentor, teach, and shape and groom all the midshipmen that take your classes. It's very, very important what you do. And then also, I'm looking at it's easy to pick out, I'm looking at the youngest people sitting at the tables right now. And all of you all either are winners or finalists in this essay contest. And Joanne and I congratulate you all for what your work meant, what it will be, and for the effort that you put into your ethics development. So thank you, and all of you all are winners. So I applaud each and every one of you. Joe, back to you. Thanks, sir.
Very much, Admiral Buck. Before we eat, I would like to recognize, we have quite a few people to recognize throughout the night and thank throughout the night. But before they leave, and I believe they're still out there, is the SOUP's protocol staff, typically known as the best in the business. So Ms. Ann McConnell, Ms. Rhonda McKay, Ms. Tina Gorka. If you could join me in a round of applause. Theirs is an incredible heavy lift. They do that 7 days a week throughout the year, incredibly busy, and they do it so professionally and so well. So thanks to all of them. And now I'd like to invite Chaplain Foley to sing Grace.
Ladies and gentlemen, according to your custom, please feel free to join me. Let us pray. Dear Lord, you inspire the great writer C.S. Lewis to observe, integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. We give thanks for the blessing of freedom and for those who bravely defend that freedom around the world, for the men and women who have the integrity to stand the watch, put themselves in the breach, to fight for what is right, to uphold by their conduct and their example the dignity of every person. Grant that the academic excellence we celebrate and the camaraderie we share may move us all to greater service and give our hearts a generous spirit. Inspire us to be men and women for whom honor is a habit and for whom keeping our commitments is our goal, even when it is inconvenient. Keep us strong enough to acknowledge our faults and brave enough to admit our mistakes, and always wise enough to learn from our experiences. Help us to grow in integrity, generosity, patience, and perseverance. And finally, Lord, make us firm in your love and gentle through your mercy. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Now, before I introduce the guest speaker, I'd like to add to Admiral Buck's appreciation for both the class of 1981, who of course make this dinner this evening possible, and the class of 1958 for establishing the Larson Ethical Leadership Excellence Award, which we'll present a little bit later on this evening. Now, as stated, Mrs. Lawrence could not join us tonight, but I want to thank her and Mrs. Larson, Mrs. Sally Larson, who could be here, for their substantial and lasting contributions to the Academy community over the many years. Mrs. Larson and Mrs. Lawrence continue to exemplify the meaning of grace, dignity, kindness, strength, and integrity. So, ma'am, thanks again for being here, and thanks for all you represent to the Naval Academy family. I'm now very honored to introduce our guest speaker, Mr. Brian Kamoie is the Assistant Administrator for Grant Programs at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, Department of Homeland Security. In this role, he oversees over $17 billion in grant programs to build, sustain, and improve our national capability to prevent, protect against, respond to, recover from, and mitigate terrorism and other disasters and emergencies. Mr. Kamoie played key roles in the response to the 2009 H1N1 influenza pandemic, Haiti earthquake, Deepwater Horizon oil spill, and Fukushima nuclear emergency. Before joining the National Security Council staff, Mr. Kamoie served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response and Director of the Office of Policy, Strategic Planning, and Communications at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, an office, by the way, that he established. Mr. Kamoie received his bachelor's degree in policy studies and political science from Dickinson College and a law degree and master's degrees in public health and political science from the George Washington University, where he was the managing editor of the George Washington Law Review. He's currently a doctoral candidate at GW and serves soon to be as a distinguished visiting fellow for the Department of Homeland Security in our own Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership. So please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Brian Kamoie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas, for that introduction, some of which is true. Superintendent Buck and Mrs. Buck, Dr. Thomas, Dean Phillips, Director Gladchuck, and the classes of 1958 and 81, Mrs. Larson and Miss Lawrence. Thank you for the kind invitation to be with you this evening for what I consider to be a very special occasion, the opportunity to recognize finalists and winners of such well-deserved awards for outstanding ethics essays. And to the civilian and military faculty of the Core Ethics course, NE 203, Ethics and Moral Reasoning for the Naval Leader, the midshipmen here this evening, your families and friends, I also thank you. It is a pleasure and privilege to be with you. And you know, I mentioned the superintendent. I last had dinner on the yard when my wife Laura taught history here from 2005 to 2013, after which she retired from teaching to write fiction full-time. So it is very nice to be back on the yard. I had the opportunity to read the 10 essays that are the finalists and the winners. And I must admit, my first reaction was that I was glad I was not asked to judge, to select the winners, because surely it was a challenging task given how well done they all are. But for the essay authors and their families and others in the room, in case you do not know how remarkable it is to be among the top 10, I thought I would share with you what I understand is the process that they took to get here. Over the course of an academic year, approximately 1,000 midshipmen take NE 203 and write essays. 40 military instructors select the best papers in their sections. And then a panel of civilian and military instructors then winnows those 40 down to 10. And then to the top 2 papers, 1 per semester. So for the midshipmen here with us who wrote essays that we are honoring, you went from 1,000 to 40 to 10. Remarkable. Please join me in congratulating all of them. The papers are well-reasoned, well-written, and address the application of ethical theories to real-world situations that the midshipmen and officers among you may face as leaders. The topics include cyber warfare, natural law, and just war, the morality of using private military corporations, Aristotle's ethics and the pursuit of the golden mean for a naval officer, deception and ethical warfare, combatant status and just war, ethics of the ban on transgender service members, and morality of the use of nuclear weapons. Which gave me my second reaction to the stack of papers. And that was one of great confidence and comfort that these midshipmen are the future leaders of our sailors and Marines, and that they will make the courageous ethical decisions that they will confront in the highest responsibilities of command, citizenship, and government. I've had the privilege of spending 15 years in senior civilian government positions at the National Security Council, at the White House, the Department of Health and Human Services, and currently at the Federal Emergency Management and the Department of Homeland Security. Through these roles, I've had the opportunity to partner with the Department of Defense and all of the armed forces, the federal interagency, foreign governments, and our state and local partners in the private sector in addressing some of the largest disasters and emergencies we have faced. And Dr. Thomas mentioned a few of them. Everything from influenza pandemics and underwater oil spills to nuclear emergencies in Japan, too many hurricanes to count, but with brand names you might recognize: Sandy, Harvey, Irma, Maria, and most recently, Dorian. I have the unfortunate privilege of being able to mark events in my family's life by whatever disaster we were responding to at the time. And at FEMA, we have been busier than ever, with an average of 59 presidentially declared major disasters per year, compared to an average of 23 in the 1980s. From hurricanes and earthquakes to wildfires and unfortunately terrorist attacks such as the one 18 years ago yesterday. And in just this year, we had 83 presidentially declared major disasters in fiscal year 2019, and we have 19 days left. Knock on wood. We are also so there are more of them, but they're also more costly. We are handling more billion-dollar disasters than ever. In the 1980s, we averaged about $6 billion disasters a year. In the last decade, we've seen more than 11 annually, including 4 of the 5 costliest disasters on record. Hurricane Sandy in 2012, Harvey, Irma, Maria in 2017. And I was talking with the Soup about his time in Jacksonville in his last assignment addressing those storms. And to give you some perspective, the 5th costliest disaster in U.S. history, the 5th, not in this past decade, but was Hurricane Katrina. So we are spending more and responding more often. So what this means, and the reason among many I am so honored to be with you tonight, is that I don't actually know that there has been a more urgent need in my lifetime for courageous and ethical leaders on and off the battlefield than right now. Your studies and essays seek to answer fundamental questions of ethical leadership. What are the sources of our moral obligations? Who do we want to be at the moment we are confronted with a morally difficult decision? What is the right thing to do? How do we fight and win on the battlefield or in the response to a complicated emergency? With honor. Often in my career, I've had to address ethical questions in national security and emergency management decision-making. For example, some of these questions have included: do we recommend that schools close at the outset of an influenza pandemic to try and stop its spread, knowing that such a decision could have devastating socioeconomic consequences for single parents who don't have paid leave, and even kids themselves who may not have enough food to eat outside of their school, especially when we may not have enough information to know the likely severity of the disease? Do we restrict scientists from modifying viruses that could lead to breakthrough vaccines and therapeutics, because doing so could also create superbugs against which we have little or no defense, risking such viruses falling into the wrong hands? In a nuclear emergency in another country, how aggressively do we seek to help with our people on the ground to address the matter when we are dealing with a fully developed sovereign nation? Do we assert control over private sector assets during a catastrophic oil spill, seizing them or conducting firm oversight of their operations when the technology they're using to drill a mile under the water is beyond our capabilities? The most important thing I can tell you tonight is this: our nation needs you to apply what you have learned here. We need you to make sure that decisions at the highest level of the military and civilian authorities are informed by morality. We need you to apply the skills and tools you have developed to determine what the right thing to do is, and then to have the courage it takes to do the right thing and express dissenting views when necessary. I know that is not always easy, but easy is generally not in an officer's or leader's job description. As a practitioner in the civilian senior executive service, who's had the great privilege to be at the table through many of these crises, I can tell you that ethics are not only relevant to practice, ethics are vital to the practice of good government. When leaders abandon core values in the pursuit of their goals, when leaders put their own personal interests above service to the organization, when leaders put private gain above public good, we all lose. There are many recent examples of leaders who pursued results without regard to ethics or the welfare of their teams. Our headlines have been full of business executives, star athletes, general officers, and senior government officials who have achieved results in ways that do not apply the solid foundation of ethics you have learned here. For example, achieving results by cheating, bullying, harassment, prohibited personnel practices, or hiding conflicts of interest is not what we expect of an ethical leader. FEMA has not been immune to allegations of such misconduct, and while I cannot discuss specific cases or individuals, the last year has brought high-profile and public accusations of ethical lapses. Sometimes we may even see a false shield around such toxic leaders. Some may say that the offender is necessary to accomplish the mission, or argue that the results the leader gets outweigh the harm they cause. I urge that when you confront this brand of leadership, I urge you to apply what you have learned here and the moral and ethical frameworks you wrote so eloquently about in your essays. Pierce the false shield with the truth that no one is indispensable. No one is above the law. Better results occur when we accomplish our mission and adhere to our core values and ethics at the same time. Lest I be accused of being too dour, however, I've also had the opportunity to see tremendous ethical leadership in action, as I suspect all of you have as well. Leaders who have prioritized values and ethics over convenience or expedience. I'll just give you a few. Admiral Peter Neffinger, Coast Guard admiral who was then appointed the administrator of the Transportation Security Administration in 2015. At the time Peter took over the Transportation Security Administration, the Department of Homeland Security Office of Inspector General had just done a test of our nation's airport security, and 90% of the knives, bombs, and guns that the OIG tried to put through screening made it through. 90%. Welcome to your new job, Admiral Neffinger. He embraced the need to improve security, tightened the screening procedures, and you know what happened next. It's summer, a lot of people are traveling, long lines, 3 and 4 hour lines at our airports, 4 hours in Chicago, 2 hours in Seattle. Admiral Neffinger was on his way to Brussels in March of 2016 because a lot of our security in airports actually starts abroad before people ever get on a plane to come here. Fortunately for Admiral Neffinger and the plane he was on, they took off late, and as they were taxiing in Brussels in March of 2016, it was when the terrorist attack at the airport there occurred. So the pilot of his plane slammed on the brakes as he watched a building explode due to a bomb. Had Admiral Neffinger's plane been on time, there was a welcome party there waiting for him. He would have had a much worse outcome. But he came back to the States almost immediately, prioritized security over convenience. As you might imagine, the media, the public, Congress put intense pressure on him to lighten up. But he saw his job as security. He prioritized what he believed to be the right thing to do, withstood that pressure, and for the first time did an analysis with data on numbers of passengers, and the airlines weren't particularly happy with him either, I should tell you. Airlines up until that point had not shared a lot of data on their passenger loads, so he was able to work with them to understand the flows and numbers so that he could surge staff at the airports, at the right times for the right flights. Certainly airport screening is a tough job, and no one's going to say we do it perfectly, but I know for sure that his is a lesson in doing the right thing, even under intense political and media pressure. One more admiral, Thad Allen. Sorry, these are both coasties. I'll do a little more research when I'm here, Dr. Thomas. Deepwater Horizon oil spill, 2010. Admiral Allen was the incident commander, taught us all a great deal, and truly was a complex crisis we had never confronted because we had never dug for oil a mile under the surface of the ocean. Had the president, and I will say, and I asked about whether there would be media here, and I don't believe any of you are in the media, but I know this is on camera, and I'm going to say it anyway. There was this public perception of President Obama that he never got upset, and he actually took criticism for appearing too calm, too cool, too collected. I can assure you that was not always the case behind closed doors or in the Situation Room, and he ended pretty much every meeting during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill with Admiral Allen, with the Secretary of Homeland Security, SecDef, and others. He would look at that, Allen, and say, Admiral, plug the damn hole. And we tried a number of things, as you may remember from the time, a lot of uncertainty. But among the things Admiral Allen had to do was he had to meet with governors of the affected states. Oil was washing up on otherwise pristine beaches in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Louisiana. And he taught us all that in any disaster, there are two responses. There is the emergency response, and then there's the political response. Never confuse the two. And when he was repeatedly pressed into answering political questions about allocation of resources or political questions about perceived preferences, he would stick with, I'm the incident commander, I'm the tactician here, you'll need to speak with the governor and the governor's teams. It takes great courage to, in the face of all of that pressure, to stick to your ethics and stick to your principles. Admiral Allen knew his job, knew his lane, and knew that prioritizing expedience or convenience or answering questions that were not his to answer would lead to bad outcomes. I'll stop there because I have many other stories, but Dr. Thomas told me that if I spoke too long, I wouldn't get the chocolate dessert, so I'll be sure to wrap up. I'll close where I began, with both thanks for the invitation to join you and congratulations to all of you for your outstanding work in the essays, but also to all of you for creating a culture here that prioritizes ethical leadership. I know we can count on all of you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mr. Kamoie. You can see why we're so very excited to have his experience in crisis leadership in particular coming aboard to the Stockdale Center here within the next month, hopefully, or so. So before we proceed to Midshipman Awards, I want to emphasize that the accomplishments of these students would not be possible without the diligent efforts of those who teach this NE 203 Moral Reasoning for the Naval Officer course. If I could for a moment just ask all NE 203 instructors with us this evening to stand so that we may thank you for your job well done this past year. So I'd also like to recognize a person who shepherds this course, NE 203, and is so deeply engaged in its future direction and the direction of its curriculum. Dr. Roger Herbert, a retired Navy captain and SEAL, has assumed the reins this past year from Captain Rick Ruble as course director. He and his cadre of instructors are working hard to bring the best teaching techniques and ethics content to the classroom. To that end, Dr. Herbert would like to make a special recognition of excellence in the teaching of that course. Dr. Herbert?
Thanks, Joe. So I'm going to start this by summoning three people up to the podium, and we can then demystify why I've asked these three gentlemen to join me up here. Let's see. Let's start with Captain Bernacci, if you could join us up here. How about, let's see, Captain Ruble, would you please join us up here? And while we're at it, how about Captain Robertson? Would you join us? Okay. So we'll demystify this in a moment why we selected these three captains up here. Captain? 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 Okay. So a couple decades ago, Congress told the service academies that we needed to establish an ethics program. So the Naval Academy brought on board about a half a dozen extraordinary philosophers to get this thing started. And very weirdly, they brought in an engineer to help figure it out. But actually, this was a good move. This was a brilliant move by the Naval Academy back then. Has anybody ever seen Apollo 13? All right, so they bring in the engineers and they throw in some rigger's tape and some baling wire and a couple things and say, somehow make this happen. So this was the problem that I think that Captain Ruble faced. It's like, I've got a half a dozen philosophers, I've got 1,100 students I need to bring in. I guess I could be the sage on the stage and have these big halls. That's not the Naval Academy way. So we needed an engineer to figure that out and get the baling wire out and the duct tape. And he figured it out in a masterful way. And that masterful way was to enlist the help across the yard and even beyond the yard of senior military officers who have this great experience, this wealth of experience, to partner with these extraordinary philosophers to run the course and to break it up into smaller sections. So if you don't know how it works, on Monday, the philosopher will come in and hand out the athletic equipment, hand out, okay, here's Aristotle. And then on say, Wednesday and Friday, a military instructor will start by, okay, do we understand what the professor was saying about Aristotle? And then try to apply this to the fleet, to what life is going to be like, or how Aristotle and Kant and Mill, et cetera, actually apply to what they're going to be doing in the Navy and in the Marine Corps. So it was necessity that started it, but this was extraordinary. And as we go around to other programs, they say, oh, that was brilliant. And it was, and it is, and it has made this program, I think, the premier military ethics program in the world. And I truly believe that, and was honored to take it over. So let me start the demystifying process. I'll start by saying that along with Admiral Buck, Lead Division really wanted to recognize the extraordinary efforts that are made by people who have day jobs, and they have to come in, they get to come in, frankly, to teach this course. So that's extraordinary, and Captain Bernacchi, who is the Lead Division Director, wanted to recognize that. And I think I'll demystify the other two gentlemen up here as I read. This is our first ever recognition of the Military Instructor of the Year, and it will go on for many years to come, I assume. So from Deputy Commandant of Leadership, Education, and Development to Captain Thomas Robertson. So that is now demystified. Subject, Captain William R. Ruble, Ethics Instructor of the Year. So we're demystifying the last. Let me read the citation. You have been selected as the Captain William R. Ruble Ethics Instructor of the Year for the academic year 2019. To earn this distinction, you demonstrated the highest level of proficiency, dedication, and enthusiasm in the classroom while serving as a military instructor for the United States Naval Academy's Core Ethics course, Ethics and Moral Reasoning for the Naval Officers. In particular, your peers and the senior faculty and staff of Lead Division and the Leadership, Ethics, and Law Department have recognized your extraordinary level of engagement with your students, your consistency of effort while teaching 5 sections of NE 203 over 2 semesters, and your creative pedagogy, which has not only proved effective in your classrooms, but has also inspired your colleagues, to include me. I'm going to steal your thing for tomorrow. I think it's going to rock. Your loyal commitment to Lead Division and your fellow instructors was on full display when you stepped forward to take on a heavier teaching load to meet LEL demands in the spring. Your readiness to lend your expertise to the NE 203 pilot program has been instrumental in assessing the efficacy of this significant initiative. Most importantly, the superlatives that your students have used to describe their semesters in your sections were impassioned. They reflect the effectiveness with which you leveraged your own unique military experiences to connect moral theory to moral practice. Your command of the discipline, your approachability, and your sincere desire to ensure your students enter the fleet prepared for moral leadership. They are furthermore evidence of your consummate professionalism and your steadfast commitment to teaching excellence and the mission of the United States Naval Academy. Your unwavering dedication to the moral and mental development of your students has made a profound and lasting impact on the professional development and education of our future Navy and Marine Corps leaders. Please accept my congratulations and sincerest gratitude for a job well done, R.J. Bernacchi. Back to you, Joe.
Well, I'd like to say congratulations to Captain Robertson, but in particular, I'd like to say congratulations, Captain Ruble. Having spent a number of years in the Leadership, Ethics, and Law Department prior to moving my way down to the other end of the hall in the Stockdale Center, I can tell you that there is no one at the Naval Academy more dedicated to the moral mission, the education of the moral mission here at the Academy across such a span of years as Captain Rick Ruble. I can't think of a more fitting way to recognize all those years of honorable service. So Jenna and Rick, congratulations on that, being known in memoriam for all times going forward. Your name is associated with excellence in teaching in that course, and there's nothing more appropriate than that. So Mr. Kamoie mentioned about how challenging a process it is to bring 1,000+ papers down to such a small number to be recognized here this evening. What he did not mention is the work that goes in layers to make this happen. So aside from the instructors that we recognize this evening here, who are the first line of readers on those papers, who bring their sections of 15 to 20 midshipmen per class down to one, they turn them over to the next level, which is the philosophers, the PhD philosophers who teach on Mondays, the ethics lecture itself, and they further boil it down and turn it over to 3 extremely dedicated outside readers who go through this, and as a labor of love, go into great detail with these papers to ensure only the best make it through to us. So I'd like to just briefly recognize those outside readers today. Mr. Jason Fry, a 1994 graduate of the Naval Academy, retired Marine Corps officer and director of ethics and business conduct at Boeing Defense, an extremely great supporter of the Stockdale Center in particular, is here with us this evening. Jason, if you would. Thanks for the hard work you put in, sir. Mr. Harry Gus Miller, a 1977 Naval Academy graduate and current director of the Northwest Florida State College Institute for Senior Professionals, also has been a reader for a number of years for us. Unfortunately, Harry is not able to join us tonight, but if you'll join me in a round of applause for him. And my good friend, Mr. Art Fisher, a 1962 graduate of the Naval Academy and a patent attorney from Tampa, Florida, who is a longtime friend, not just of me, but of the Stockdale Center, and he's been an integral part for a number of years on a number of projects on which the center has taken up. So, sir, thank you for your time. Okay, we'll honor our finalists in the following manner. If I could ask Admiral Buck to please join me here, along with Mr. Kamoie. We're going to recognize the finalists, and I'll read the letter of recognition only for the first one, just in the interest of time. We will have 3 finalists associated with each semester. Remember, we're recognizing a winner for both the fall and the spring semester. We'll have 3 finalists and then 1 winner of the overall Ethics Essay Award, which, oh, by the way, will come with both a book, a plaque, book on Admiral Lawrence's life, a plaque, and a cash award as well in the form of a check. So that it coincides with Junior Parents Weekend, the rumor always is that you're going to buy your parents dinner here for kind of a man bites dog story on that end. So with that in mind, the first of these letters of commendation, and again, these commendations will appear similar, but I will read the first, and it is the fall term finalist, Midshipman Gennady Shemigwa. From Director Vice Admiral Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership, United States Naval Academy, to Midshipman Gennady Shemigwa. Letter of commendation. I commend you for your outstanding contribution to the ethics essay competition with your paper entitled Just War Theory, Natural Law and Cyber Warfare. Your paper was selected by a panel of distinguished experts as a finalist from the field of over 500 entries submitted by students in NE 203 during the fall 2018 semester. Your achievement is a testament to both your academic ability and understanding of the ethical implications of service in the United States Navy and Marine Corps. I applaud your commitment to excellence and appreciate your drive to prepare yourself morally and mentally to lead sailors and Marines. If Midshipman Shimigwa could join us at the podium. And again, for the remainder, I'm going to read their names, the name of their instructor, and the title of their papers only. The second finalist in the fall of 2018 is Midshipman Chris Bondrowitz. Midshipman Bondrowitz had Captain Chris Bailey as an instructor for NE 203, and the title of his paper was Use of Private Military Contractors in War. Midshipman Bondrowitz. The third finalist for fall 2018 is Midshipman Benjamin Ryder. Midshipman Ryder had Lieutenant Commander Danielle Litchford for the course, and the title of his topic was Deception and the Principles of Just War Theory. Midshipman Ryder. And the recipient of the fall term Lawrence Essay Award winner is Midshipman Adam Kuper. Now, Adam, it must be said, is studying on a semester abroad in Portugal at the moment, but I believe his parents, John and Stephanie, are here with us this evening. Sir, ma'am, if you don't mind accepting on his behalf. Midshipman Kuper had Captain Ruble in NE 203, and the title of his paper was The Golden Mean, Stoicism, the Constitutional Paradigm, and Officership. Got this one. Thanks so much. All right, the spring 2019 Essay Award finalists are, first, Midshipman Lillian Baker. Midshipman Baker had Commander Chris Longabaugh for NE 203, and the title of Midshipman Baker's paper is An Argument Against the Use of Private Military Contractors in Combat Roles. Now, our second finalist happens to be another midshipman studying abroad this semester, studying in this case, so Commander Disher, your programs are well represented by ethics scholars this year in the international programs realm. Jayton Kona. Jayton Kona had Lieutenant Commander Ali Ghaffari for NE 203, and Jayton's title was An Ethical Examination of Combat Roles for Private Military Contractors. I believe the parents of Midshipman Kona are here as well. Is that true? Would you like to come up, sir, ma'am? And the third finalist for the spring 2019 term, Midshipman Malia Karen. Her instructor for NE 203 was Commander Greg Chapman, and the title of her paper was Immorality of the Transgender Ban. Midshipman Karen. And the winner of the Spring 2019 award is Midshipman Preston Rhodes. But now we have a third midshipman who is unable to be with us, but not on semester abroad in this case. In this case, well, sort of abroad, actually at West Point for the semester, so we call it that.
That's real abroad.
Much harsher circumstances where Preston is at the moment. And Preston had Captain Jim Campbell for NE 203, and the title of Midshipman Rhodes' paper was On the Combatant, Non-Combatant Distinction, Ethical and Operational Implications. So if you join me in a round of applause for Midshipman. So, sir? Yes. Yes. Oh, we got two more. Sorry. Yep. We've got a fourth for the spring term, Midshipman Marco McGavick, spring term finalist. Midshipman McGavick had Colonel M.J. Pilata for NE 203, and the topic of his paper was the nuclear question. Midshipman McGavick. And the winner for 2019, spring 2019, Midshipman Justin Rosas. Midshipman Rosas had Captain Dave Jackson for NE 203, and the title of his paper was In Defense of the Private Military Contractor. Midshipman Rosas. Bad. Skipping a cash award with that one, too, if I'd have missed that one. All right. So we're now going to kind of conclude our evening's ceremony and presentations with a presentation of the Larson Ethical Leadership Excellence Award. Now, just a moment on what this award represents, who brought it into being, and why it is so important, considered in some ways the premier award here at the Naval Academy, certainly in the recognition of the exercise of ethical leadership. The Naval Academy class of 1958 wanted to honor their classmate, Admiral Chuck Larson, by establishing a unique ethical leadership award here at the Academy, not for midshipmen, but for those who lead and influence those midshipmen. The Larsen Ethical Leadership Excellence Award is named for Admiral Larson, who was an accomplished naval leader and had a distinguished 40-year naval career to include command of all military forces in the Pacific, service in the White House, and appointment as the superintendent of the Naval Academy on 2 occasions. The award is presented to the Naval Academy staff, faculty, athletic administrator, or coach who has contributed significantly to the Academy's mission to graduate ethical leaders for the Navy, Marine Corps, and nation by modeling through word and deed Admiral Larson's lifelong principles to uphold the standards, be persons of integrity, lead by example, strive for excellence without arrogance, and treat everyone with dignity and respect. A committee appointed by the superintendent reviewed all those nominations for the award this year and recommended that recipient upon conclusion to the superintendent. The recipient receives a citation and a check from the class of 1958 with his or her name on it, and it's engraved on a permanent plaque in the Stockdale Center for Ethical Leadership, a plaque that hangs in the same area as the SA award winners that we just heard about. To assist me as I present the Larsen Award, I'd like to bring to the podium the superintendent once again, Colonel Gordon Gerson. I believe he's here tonight, sir. He's a class of 1958 president, and Mrs. Sally Larson, if you would join us as well. This year, we are presenting the Admiral Charles R. Larson Ethical Leadership Excellence Award to an individual whose contributions to the Naval Academy have been far-reaching and enduring. That individual is Professor Christine Kuper. Just a word on Professor Kuper. Professor Kuper teaches in the chemistry department and serves as the Naval Academy's institutional faculty athletics representative. She's impacted hundreds and hundreds of midshipmen, not just in the classroom, but also through her service as her department's major academic advisor and research mentor. Coach of the women's club tennis team from 1995 to 2007, men's varsity tennis team faculty representative, and one of the co-founders of the Gettysburg Leadership Experience for varsity team captains, and now stripers as well these past few years. In her work as our faculty athletics representative, Professor Kuper was chosen to serve for the past 4 years on the top body of the NCAA Division I governance structure, which is its board of directors. She's been the Naval Academy liaison to the Patriot League and the American Athletic Conference, Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and is the past president of the NCAA's Faculty Athletics Representative Association. Professor Kuper was also named to the very prestigious Knight Commission, which is composed of current and former university presidents and chancellors, university trustees, and former college athletes, as well as nationally regarded thought leaders involved in higher education or college sports. In her nomination for this award, it was noted that Dr. Kuper radiates excellence in all she does. And having known her now these many years, I can attest to that. That's absolutely true. Yet there is no one more humble and focused on students and the Academy's mission. And that is why we are recognizing Professor Kuper in this special and unique way, because Professor Kuper is a great ethical leader and represents in every way Admiral Larson's principles of leadership and life. Professor Kuper, once again, congratulations. Well deserved. Well deserved. All right. Well, Karen is watching time. She's got that on here. And in addition to this, I would like to, Karen keeps everything clicking here. I'll thank her momentarily. And she's reminding me that these centerpieces at the middle of each table are meant to be claimed by someone at the table. So you can figure out for yourselves as to who the most appropriate person would be to take that thing home with us. That'll prevent us from having to carry them back to Loose Hall. So you'd be doing us a great favor. Please, somebody take those things. And on that point, I really do have to end by paying recognition to the people who actually pull off the details of getting this whole thing together, particularly within the Stockdale staff, first and foremost within the Stockdale staff. Karen Orenberg, who was just up here, retired Air Force. She's the center's senior staff associate and event planner, and just does a marvelous job. She's moved in within the past year and revolutionized much of what we do, and it's just been just an incredible part of the team. Miss Sarah White is in the back as well. She's the center's financial management analyst and does incredible work with our budgets, the variety of budgets that we have from non-appropriated funds. Dr. Sean Baker, who's here with us this evening, is the assistant director of the center who arranged for outside readers, the plaque engraving, helped all those who were here, and new to this event. He pulled together these details in a way that he always does with a great deal of grace himself. And finally, Dr. Jeff McCrease also moved into the center this past year as my deputy within the center, and he's done a tremendous job as well to help pull all of this together. Furthermore, I'd like to also recognize the staff of Alumni Hall here, the photo lab that comes and commits this to our collective memory, the Media Support Center for pulling their part of it together, and everything that's done here in the Bow Coppage Room. I'd certainly like to thank the Naval Academy Club and its staff for putting on such a wonderful meal here this evening that all of us enjoyed so much. So please join me in a round of applause for all the folks who put this on. Now, in closing, I'd like to share with you the words of Admiral Stockdale himself. He once wrote that, and I quote here, "The Stoics said that character is fate. What I am saying is that in my life, education has been fate. The challenge of education is not to prepare a person for success, but to prepare him or her for failure. It is in disaster, not success, that the heroes and the bums really get sorted out. Always striving for true education is the best insurance against losing your bearings, your perspective in the face of disaster, in the face of failure," unquote. Now, Admiral Stockdale very famously relied on the words of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus for answers and strength in his nearly 8-year term of imprisonment in the Hanoi Hilton. But he also wrote later in life about how Homer, Shakespeare, Dostoevsky influenced him as he sought to balance, as he put it, the study of the language of high technology and modernity with the ancient wisdom of moral responsibility and human understanding. He modeled the balance of these two parts of classic education. I think you'd agree that hearing the subjects tonight our midshipmen are writing about today in their core ethics course, Admiral Stockdale wouldn't only be proud, but he'd be very pleased that they are well prepared for the challenge and crises that they'll undoubtedly face in the not-too-distant future. They're up to the challenge, Mr. Kamoie, that you issued to them this evening. I think we should all feel very, very good about turning the reins of leadership over to them in the coming years. So I'd like to offer one more congratulations to the midshipmen. I'd like to offer congratulations to Professor Kuper, Captain Robertson, and all the awardees this evening. And once again, thank all of you for making this night so special, joining us in this recognition, again, of what I believe to be the signature defining issue for this institution, ethical leadership. Good night, safe travels, and God bless.